Another day, another horror game. Time to venture into Silent Hill. Monsters or no monsters, I'll tear them apart. I may not come out of there alive, but I'm going in there. There's only one thing I need you guys to do. Talk me out of it! Greetings and welcome to Gabe Talks. Today I will be comparing the differences between the original Silent Hill 2 and the recent 2024 remake of the same name. So far, the remake has been mostly faithful to the original's plot, but I will spotlight the level and narrative differences as we go through chapter by chapter. Keep in mind I will be talking spoilers for both games, so feel free to come back to this video once you've caught up. Run along now before the spoiler monster gets you! Before we start talking about the story, I want to highlight a helpful resource the remake added. When you boot up the game, it will give you a trigger warning about the serious topics covered in the narrative. The story gets pretty intense, going as far in terms of covering themes like abuse and grief. The developers were kind enough to leave a QR code and link to some resources for players going through similar struggles and other mental health issues. If you or someone close to you are having issues with mental health, please take advantage of this resource. I'll add the link in the description for those that need it. Now let us begin. The Silent Hill 2 remake's opening is mostly faithful to the original with a small change here and there. You'll find me saying this a lot. Both games open with the iconic shot of our protagonist James Sunderland looking at a mirror and touching his face. The remake only added the small detail of showing James' shaking hand to imply the trauma and grief he is going through. In this version, we get a fade to black cut where James says, "Mary, could you really be in this town?" as the cutscene continues. In the original, right after he says that line, the game gives the player control of James for a bit and lets them explore the bathroom until they exit the room. The remake does let the player explore the bathroom, but after the opening cutscene is finished. And while I'm at it, one obvious difference you'll see throughout both games is the gameplay. The original had a fixed camera perspective with tank controls and stiff movement. The remake adopts an over-the-shoulder camera with more fluid movement and combat options, which thank God, cause I freaking hate tank controls. Back to the exterior cutscene. To summarize the premise, James visits the town of Silent Hill after receiving a letter from his deceased wife, Mary, telling him to go meet her in their special place. Again, this scene is largely faithful to the original with one cut piece of dialogue. The remake omitted the line where James theorizes that Mary might be in Rosewater Park. Don't know why the line was cut, maybe for the sake of fluency, or maybe because they wanted new players to go in completely blind. Regardless, it was cut, and now the remake is a 0 out of 10. I'm kidding. Jumping to the graveyard, in both games, this is the point where we are introduced to Angela. Similar to the last discussed scene, there's only one line omission. The original, James says that he is looking for someone important, and adds that he'd do anything to be with her again. Outside of the dialogue, there's another subtle but clear difference between both games. In the story, Angela is 19, but in her original design, she looks like she's about the same age as James. The remake rectifies this and redesigns her to actually look her age. Another difference is in the performance. The original Angela has a lot more of a panicky reaction to James, and the remake takes a more reserved approach.
Excuse me,
I'm sorry. I
No,
was
it's
just...
okay. I didn't mean to scare you.
Excuse me.
I'm sorry. I was just...
Hey, it's okay. I didn't mean to scare you.
Moving on from the graveyard, the remake's hike into town is mostly faithful to the originals. The remake did add a small obstacle in the form of a locked gate. You have to jump into the garage and snag the key to open the door. Nothing too crazy. However, a more notable addition to this game would be the first encounter with something called glimpses of the past. These glimpses are locations and objects that call back to the original Silent Hill 2. More on this particular glimpse later. When you arrive in Silent Hill, you'll see some changes in its presentation. For starters, Remake James collects a map from the tourist board when he arrives. The original gives the entire map of the town when you collect it from James's car. Though in the remake, you can collect a portion of the map in his car just like in the original. In this remake, you can explore locations that were previously locked in the original, like the flower shop. As a matter of fact, inside the shop, you can find the first clue of a ketchup trail, where in the original, you find it out in the streets. Hold up a minute, you're telling me that's blood? Oh no, I get queasy when I see blood.
A few moments later.
Fuck you! Fuck you! In the original, as soon as you find the blood trail, a cutscene will play out showing you a figure walking into a fog. In the new game, we get a similar cutscene, but when you get near the houses. This is where both games take drastically different directions even though they end up in the same destination. In a major deviation from the original, the remake takes us to the backyard of the houses. James will continue to follow the blood trail until it leads him to a broken garage door. He crawls under it to explore the house and eventually find a radio on a chair. This radio emits a static transmission when there's monsters around, but I don't see any James will comment that the creature isn't human and... You know what? Excuse me a second. Fuck you! Fuck you! Worth it! Well, this scene played out differently in the original. James follows the blood trail and on the way, he hears static from the distance. It leads him to a tunnel blocked by pipes. He crawls through the opening to find a radio inside the tunnel, but when he grabs it, a monster emerges from the darkness. James pulls a wooden plank from the debris and gets ready to square up. In this corner of the ring, we got the foam vomit man, and in this corner, we have a turning champion, Johnny and his best friend Plank. Who will win? Oh, and Johnny comes swinging in with Plank. What a knockout! After dealing with that monster, James will see that the way to Rosewater Park is blocked. As we just saw, this scene does not play out this way in the remake, but you can visit its location on the way to Silent Hill, in the form of a glimpse of the past I mentioned earlier. In both versions, after we kill our first monster, which is called a lying figure by the way, we get a broken message from the radio that keeps cutting off. This could be Mary. Speak up, woman! I can't hear a damn word you're saying! This is what I get for switching to cricket. At this point of the story, the original and the remake take two different paths to the next destination. For the moment, let's focus on the original. After James kills the lying figure, he has free reign to explore Silent Hill. The exploration could lead the player to an RV where they can find a note asking them to meet at Nellie's bar. From the bar, you can find a map that highlights a path on how to get to Rosewater Park and something circled at the end of Martin Street. At Martin Street, you'll find a mauled corpse, and on it, you'll find a key that will open the entrance to the Woodside apartments. With all that being said, the player can just stumble upon the body without having the need to visit the other locations. Heading to the apartments with key in hand will advance the story, which we will continue on the next episode of Dragon Ball Z. Oh, I mean the next comparison video. Meanwhile, we still have to wrap up the remake portion. The remake complicates the search for the apartment key. When you head to Nellie's bar, there's a jukebox puzzle James has to solve. I won't go into too much detail on how exactly to solve this puzzle, otherwise we'd be here all day. But what's important is that this puzzle requires the player to take detours of different places in town. You'll visit new areas like the Saul Street apartments and the Groovy Music Store, which were not explorable in the original. Once you have the required items, the jukebox will be able to play a record that will play a familiar tune for the original Silent Hill 2 fans. The song will trigger a flashback for James remembering that his and Mary's special place might be in Rosewater Park, leading him to believe he might find her there. So that's why they cut the line from the beginning. Wait, what kind of flashback would James get if the record played the Coconut song? She put the lime in the coconut, she drank it both up. She put the lime in the coconut, she drank it both up. Damn it, now the song's stuck in my head. Anyways, the jukebox will spit out a key that will open the back part of the bar. James will follow the path, and it will lead him to a greenish blue car. And right next to it is a bloody jacket which contains the Woodside apartment keys. But collecting this will trigger an ambush, leaving James surrounded by lying figures. The smart thing would be to run, but nobody has ever accused me of being smart, so I fought them off like a man. And it left me with an owie. After you leave that area, the winds pick up, intensifying the fog and increasing the number of monsters roaming the streets, leaving James no choice but to seek shelter in the Woodside apartments, which I will cover in a future video. Thanks for watching. I purposely glossed over some optional stuff from the remake, like the grocery store, because they weren't relevant to the narrative. But if I missed anything, please let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed my video, hit that like button, and subscribe if you want to keep up with videos like this. Thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you all later. She put the lime in the coconut, she drank it both up. I've been singing for hours. She put the lime in the coconut, she drank it both up. Somebody help! She put the lime in the coconut, she drank it both up. Kill me!